Chapter 1, Poison Ink. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, its edges slightly singed as if it had been too close to a candle's flame. The wax seal crimson and crack it bore the impression of a serpent coiled around a dagger. It was the kind of correspondence that made even the most composed of Victorian gentlemen pause before breaking the seal. But then this was no ordinary letter. It was a death warrant disguised as ink and paper. The year was 1856, and London was a city of contrast, gaslight and shadow, wealth and squalor, whispers and screams. The Thames carried more than just water. It carried secrets, and on that particular Tuesday, one of those secrets had just been delivered to the doorstep of a man who would soon wish he had never read its contents. The letter's recipient, a respected physician with a reputation for discretion, unfolded the parchment with gloved hands. The script was elegant, the handwriting precise, almost too precise. The words themselves were innocuous enough at first glance. A request for medical advice, a plea for confidentiality. But beneath the polite veneer there was something else, a chill, a suggestion of something darker lurking between the lines. The physician's name was Dr. Henry Whitlock, and he had seen enough of the world to recognize the unspoken language of poison. The letter's author, a woman of means and mystery, had signed her name with a flourish H.L.C., but the initials meant nothing to him, not yet. What mattered was the substance of the request. A query about the symptoms of arsenic poisoning, a question that, in the wrong hands, could be the first step toward murder. Whitlock exhaled slowly, his breath fogging the air in the dimly lit study. He had treated victims of arsenic before pill, sweating figures who clutched their stomachs as if their very organs were turning to liquid. The poison was insidious, a silent killer that left no immediate trace. It was the perfect weapon for someone who knew how to use it. And someone, it seemed, did. The letter had been sent from a townhouse in Mayfair, an address that spoke of wealth and privilege. The kind of place where scandal was whispered behind lace curtains, where a single misstep could ruin a family for generations. Whitlock had no way of knowing it then, but this letter was the first thread in, a web that would unravel into one of the most notorious poisoning cases of the century. He set the letter down carefully, as if it might burn him. The ink had dried, but the danger remained. Arsenic was not just a poison, it was a story of greed, a betrayal, of a woman who would stop at nothing to secure her future. And now, whether he liked it or not, Dr. Whitlock was part of that story. The clock on the mantel struck the hour, its chime echoing through the house like a warning. Outside, the streets of London were alive with the sounds of carriages and hawkers, the distant of a city that had no idea what was coming. But in that quiet study, with the letter still resting on the desk, the future was already being written in poison ink. And it would be a long time before anyone realized just how deadly the words would prove to be. The next morning, Whitlock found himself standing before the townhouse in Mayfair, his medical bag in hand. The door was answered by a servant who regarded him with suspicion before ushering him inside. The air inside was thick with the scent of beeswax and lavender, a vain attempt to mask something fouler beneath. He was led to a sitting room where a woman sat by the fire, her back to the door. She turned slowly, and when she did, Whitlock felt the weight of her gaze like a physical force. She was beautiful, in the way that predators often air sharp features, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Dr. Whitlock, she said, her voice smooth as silk. I was hoping you would come. He bowed slightly, his mind racing. You wrote to me, indeed. She gestured to a chair, and he sat, though every instinct pulled him to flee. I have a delicate matter to discuss, a matter of health. And perhaps just as the fire crackled between them, casting long shadows on the walls, Whitlock had seen this kind of woman before, charming, calculating, capable of anything. He had no doubt that the letter had been a test, and now he had passed it. Tell me, he said carefully, what exactly is it that you need? She leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. I need to know how to kill someone, and I need to know how to get away with it. The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Whitlock's pulse quickened, but his expression remained neutral. This was the moment the game began, and he had no choice but to play. Why? He asked, though he already knew the answer. She smiled. Because I've been wronged, and I intend to make sure the wrongdoer pays. The firelight flickered, and for a moment Whitlock saw something in her eyes that made his blood run cold. It wasn't just vengeance she wanted. It was control. And in the world of poison, control was everything. He took a deep breath. And let us begin. And so the first chapter of a very dark story was written, a story of poison ink, of secrets buried in the earth, and of a woman who would stop at nothing to claim what she believed was hers. The Arsenic Diaries had begun.